Well, it's now a cool Saturday morning. Adam's got his Kia Venga. He had his fuel tank replaced. There was a leak around the seam, so a local garage has replaced the fuel tank earlier, but his fuel gauge isn't working, so we're just going to have a look at his fuel gauge. We think it's the way that the float on the sender unit moves, something to do with that. So this is how you get access to the sender unit and have a check. So as far as we're aware, we're going to have to remove this seat. So there's a bolt there and there's a bolt there. Yeah, we need to move this, but there's some bolts on the back, so we're going to get those undone and move to the next step. Right, so there's 3 trim clips in the back, just these plastic things that you pop out. The centre part gets popped out and then the surround gets pulled out. And then, once you lift that up, you'll see underneath here there's a bracket. There's 2 bolts there and there's 1 bolt there. Now you have to pull the lever to move the seat forward to get access to that. So the lever's there. I can't do it one-handed. So anyway, I'll move the seat forward. You lift up that lever, the seat base slides forward, and then we get access to 2 bolts. Right, so that's the bolt out there, and the bolt out there, and the 3 bolts out at the back. I used my trusty Parkside impact driver, make short work of it. See, the bolts are out there and the bolts out there. So all we've got to do now is lift this out. Right, so we've just lifted the seat into the back. There's this cover, and then we just disconnect the sender unit electrical connector. There's that, there's a tongue on it. You'll see there, that tongue. You push that in, then it will release the catch that holds on there. So what we think's wrong is something about the way the sender's fitted isn't quite right. The chap that fitted it, he did drill some holes because he reckoned it didn't fit properly. So what we're thinking at this point is maybe there was something about the way that was put in, but we'll need to disconnect it. So first thing we need to do is take the fuel clips off. So these are just push-in ones. That's that one off. A lot easier these than the ones on the seat. A bit tight, maybe that's showing some. Right, so that's that. Now that we've got that, the fuel hose is disconnected, we've got 10mm nuts that hold this collar in, that holds the sender in place. 8mm is it, sorry. So Adam's taken off these 8mm nuts. There's plenty of them, so that's a wee bit of a sort of longer thing to do. Depending on the situation with your tank, might Be worth putting a bit of spray on them. And as you can see, Adam's got a nice little bit for lying on to do this. So when he wakes up, I'll bring him some coffee and bacon rolls once he's got out of his bed. Right, that's all the nuts off the collar, or whatever the technical term for that is. This is kind of spring loaded, isn't it? Yeah. So we just need to lift up the collar. You can see where it's been adjusted there. So there's one adjusted there, there's one adjusted here. Yeah, there's one. So there's three that have been adjusted for some reason. So, well,
because this didn't match up with the new tank.
Right, okay.
That's what it was.
Seems strange. So there is a wee bit of sort of spring tension on that. Right, so okay, so we're going to get sender out. Now the sender will be full of diesel, and Adam will just let that pour back into the tank.
See that rag there?
This one?
No, pull some of that out. Roll some of that out.
What, the towel?
Yeah, aye.
Right, I'll stop this while I'm doing this. So that's the sender unit removed. So what we think is this is hanking on something.
Right.
Right, so that's the way the collar goes. So you've got the indents there,
So,
and the indents are there. So what we think is maybe this
but how can you put
is
the pipe?
touching on something.
Can these pipes come to the can?
Right, we've been fiddling about, and what we're finding is the sender unit seems to be touching a web or a rib towards the rear end of the tank. So we've kind of turned it round so there's no sign of it touching it, and one of the observations is now the fuel lines seem to line up more naturally with the sender unit, but we haven't got these located how they should be. So Adam's just going to check and see if his fuel tank comes on at half.
Going to put the plug in.
Put the plug in. Right. That's the connected sensor.
No.
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 What's it reading?
Empty.
Reads empty. Ah well, back to the drawing board. Right, well there must have been a delayed reaction with the sender unit and the gauge. So now the gauge is reading half tank, which it looks like it is inside the hole. So we're going to do this. So as you can see, for some reason it's shifted that much, but now the fuel gauge works. So we're going to try bolting this down to see if this does work. Obviously this is a work in progress, but I think the clue is that the fuel lines now naturally point at the outlets and inlets for the flow and the return, whereas they didn't before. So we'll put this back together and then Adam will take it for a run up and down a hill, see if it affects the movement of the tank.
Must be a nut missing.
Is there? We'll have a look for it now. Right, so Adam's taking the car for a run. We've come back. We just want to check and see if there's any leakage. Does that look like that might have?
Nah, it's just what it was before.
You sure? Right, so what were you saying? Your miles per gallon's working again, yeah?
Yeah, it wasn't before.
It wasn't before, right? And the gauges, when you go around bends up and down hills, you seem to be moving?
I might do it at the bottom of the roof straight, but
right.
I did it a bit shake up and down the road.
So it does appear to be working now. So if anybody else has got a Kia Venga tank, it would be handy to see if there was an image of how that's positioned below the seat. But obviously I'm not expecting anybody to unbolt their seat and let us know, but one of the things I always like to do is have a record of what it's like before and then double check it after, but obviously we don't have that luxury here. So this seems to have resolved it, but it's really just a part one here to see how it goes. So if anybody's got any comments after swapping a Kia Venga tank, which seems to be quite a common problem, I think when Adam had his car in for the MOT on Monday, the chap said that from a 12 plate onwards a plastic tank was used. So has anybody else had a plastic tank fitted as opposed to a metal tank like this one? And if so, did you have any issues with the sender unit when you put it into the new tank, or with the collar fitting? So anyway, that's a Saturday morning investigation, and we'll get a cup of tea and some bacon rolls. So we'll get back after this has been driven around for a wee while. Right, so we've fitted the cover, put the carpet back on. We're now just going to move the seat back in. Well, that's those bolts there and there fitted, and then we bring this down. We'll bring the seat back. So you just pop those things in, just make sure they're secured, the centre part first, and then, sorry, the outer part first, and then pop the wee screw bit in. That's fairly straightforward. So, as I say, Adam will need to keep an eye on it, make sure there's no leaks from that sender unit, but we'll see if we can find an image to show what the standard condition is for that sender unit. But the collar seems to be out, causing a snag somehow against the tank. Well, it's now Sunday. Adam's popped up with his car and he's got the tank back from the garage in the scrap pile, and we can see straight away how this works on the original tank. You'll see that nib. So there's an indent there which lines up with that, and you can see the clock face, so we'll just say that's about just beyond 9 towards 10, and that's maybe sort of between 4 and coming towards 5 o'clock. But the way it was in his car on the other tank was more like that. So with it like that, that must be knocking against something, but once we turn that back to the correct position, the sender unit will be Let's see, so that's kind of lined up with that one, and that one's kind of lined up down there, so it should be kind of straight back. So we need to look at what's different with the replacement tank, and I think I'm going to put some gloves on before I stink of diesel all day. Right, so we're in the car, and you can see there's no sign of any indent there. So we need to figure out how that goes. Right, so we see how it goes in. So with the stud pattern on the other tank, this bit moves round to here, which moves this round, so the sender level, the float, must be hitting off something. So we now know that that doesn't go at an angle, it goes straight down. So what I think we might have to do is maybe modify these tabs and then fit the sender. So we'll do a test, quick test. Right, so here we go. Is that working okay?
So we're up the top, and that's it was full. It was full yesterday.
It was full yesterday.
Well, okay, I'd have stopped it when the first click because I thought I didn't want to put it in.
But should it be?
That's where it should be.
That's where it should be. So we think we're in the right direction. So what we'll do is we'll put all this back together. So if you've got a Kia Venga and you're changing your fuel tank, you may get a problem with this ring. So you can see that indent is, it's not quite 12 o'clock position, but it's close to the 12 o'clock position here. So hopefully that's right, but when it's at the 12 o'clock position, these tabs are not fitting where they should. So what we used for reference was this. It was just slightly off the sort of the straight position, and that looks like it's working.
Got a bit like that there.
I think you'll just have to forego it unless you can get underneath. I don't know what that thing does.
That's a pressure thing.
It's a pressure thing. You might actually, I think you might get one on there, but you need to use a spanner to tighten it. So right, we'll go back to the old tank. So going back to that indent, you'll see the indent here is off centre. So we've got the indent somewhere about here. So we've had to rotate it anti-clockwise. It's just over an inch, or roughly an inch, I would say, or 2.5 centimetres. So that looks promising. You can see the condition of this tank. Adam thinks this tank was probably changed previously, because it seems to have some like I-30 or something written on it. But it was getting a wee bit crispy. Looks alright underneath, apart from that corner. But anyway, he's got a new one. So if you've got a plastic tank, this might not be a problem for you, but I found with a car I had previously, which was a Nissan S14, it had a plastic tank, but it got stress fractures from the straps that held it in place. But so I think this will be enough for a Sunday, and then we'll see how it goes. So hopefully it's recording the fuel level accurately now, and we've found the problem. So when you replace your tank, just be aware that there might be some variations. Well, Adam is now going to check the car. He's going to take it for a run up and down a big hill, which is Lauder Hill. But he says it's indicating the fuel level. No. So yeah, so if you're changing your tank, be aware it might not be as straightforward as you think, despite it being a fairly straightforward job to remove it and replace it.